Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, spoiler season continues on, and we are getting a lot of really exciting cards, including this one from very early yesterday morning with Augur of Autumn. And then actually at the end of the day yesterday, we got Moonveil Regent, a Mythic Wheel Dragon, and yes, you heard me correctly with all those words in that order. But this morning, we might have gotten the most absurd card ever. I mean, this thing did not allow me to get back to sleep after I saw it. Yes, this is Old Stick Fingers, because that's a name. But anyways, this is an incredibly broken new commander, and if you haven't seen that episode, make sure you check it out. But don't leave just yet to go check out that episode, because I've got a really exciting one for you right here. And also, I'd be pretty sad if you left me right here. Even though it's for a previous episode that I made, I worked really hard on this one too. So please, please, please stick around for this one first before leaving to go watch that other one, okay? Regardless, this episode's about what is potentially a brand new Blasphemous Act. That's right, the Commander staple, the card that many players know and love. Well, now you might just get another one. So what exactly is this new card? Well, let's jump into it to find out. First off, a big thank you to MTG Goldfish for the translation on this card. Out The Horde is a sorcery that costs 6 white. It says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, destroy all creatures. So, though this does have a converted mana cost of 8 mana, or I guess I should say mana value, because yeah, they changed what they're calling it. Regardless, though this costs 8 mana in total, it is pretty much never going to cost that amount for you. In fact, it'd be kind of weird if you cast it for 8 mana, because that means that there's no creatures on the battlefield, but you're trying to destroy all creatures. So yeah, it's always going to cost less than 8. In fact, in a multiplayer format like Commander, this is pretty much always going to cost, oh, I don't know, 2 mana? So yeah, a 2 mana board wipe is pretty ridiculous, especially one that isn't damage based. And like I mentioned earlier, and like what you saw in the thumbnail and probably the title as well, Blasphemous Act is most definitely the comparable card to this one. And obviously that's some really good company to be in if you're being compared to that card. Blasphemous Act is a commander staple for a reason, and it sees play in 24% of eligible decks. So again, according to EDH Rack, percentage-wise, this is one of the top played cards in Commander. In fact, I believe it's in the top 40. Now, in case you haven't seen it before, it's a sorcery for 8 and a red, but it's never going to cost that much. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield and deals 13 damage to each creature. So yeah, essentially a 1 mana wipe pretty much the entire board. Now, obviously there are some key differences in positives and negatives between Blasphemous Act and Out The Horde. I mean, first off, yes, it is possible for a creature to survive this if they happen to have enough toughness. Now, obviously that is rare, but if you are playing against a Voltron commander, they might just have enough toughness to survive this. Also, Blasphemous Act can't take out creatures that have protection from red. Again, because it's a damage-based board wipe, those creatures with protection are going to survive. Whereas with Out The Horde, it doesn't matter if a creature has protection from white, sorry, you're gone anyways. Regardless, being a damage-based board wipe though, there are some pluses that you can do with Blasphemous Act that you can't do with Out The Horde. For example, if you've got something that can redirect or utilize damage that is dealt to it, like a Brash Taunter or a Stuffy Doll, yeah, 13 damage to that can just hit your opponent for a lot as well. So a 1 mana board wipe that can also ping an opponent for a ton, yes, Blasphemous Act is better in that scenario. Also, yes, Blasphemous Act does have the potential to cost less. Because again, if there are 8 creatures on the field, this only costs a red mana. Whereas Out The Horde has a minimum cost of white, so 2 mana in total. That being said, Out The Horde can cost less if there are less creatures on the field. If there are only 6 creatures on the field, Out The Horde still costs white, but Blasphemous Act is going to cost 2 and a red, so yeah, slightly more. Regardless, both are fantastic cards, obviously. And yeah, again, the fact that Wipe Out the Horde is being mentioned in the same conversation as Blasphemous Act means that this is going to be a very powerful card in Commander. Now, does that mean that Wipe Out the Horde is going to be more popular than Blasphemous Act? I doubt it. In red, there are a decent amount of damage-based board wipe options. And Blasphemous Act is definitely the best one out there, so yeah, if you don't have access to white, you're probably going to be running it. And if you're in white, you've got an absurd amount of wraths to pick from. That being said, Wipe Out the Horde is definitely going to be considered for a slot in a ton of decks. So now let's move on and talk about some wraths that this one very well might push out for their spot in a deck. First up, when talking about wraths, of course you've got to talk about the OG Wrath of God. This is where wraths started, this is where wraths got their name off of, and yeah, this is a very good card. It's a sorcery for 2 white and it says destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. Now, Wrath of God is also a commander staple in many ways, and this one sees play in 12% of eligible decks, which is still very impressive. Again, especially in white when you've got so many options for wraths. I mean, Day of Judgment is essentially the exact same thing. It doesn't say they can't be regenerated, but there really aren't that many regenerating creatures out there. So yeah, with each of these, again, in comparison to Wipe Out the Horde, yes, they do have a lower base cost at 4 mana. But again, Wipe Out the Horde easily has the potential to cost just 2 mana, so yeah, half that. And again, most of the time when you want to wipe the board, there are a decent amount of creatures in play. So considering that, you're usually going to be getting a discount on it and actually casting it for less. So I could easily see Wipe Out the Horde being played over these 2 cards. A 2 mana Wrath is just pretty unheard of. I mean, we recently got a somewhat 3 mana Wrath with Doomscar. This one came out earlier this year in Kaldheim and is already seeing play in 4% of eligible decks. It's a sorcery for 3 white, so 5 mana in total, and says destroy all creatures, but it also has a foretell cost for 1 white. So in a way, by foretelling it for 2 and a white, you're kind of splitting up its mana cost across 2 turns. Regardless, when you do actually foretell it, you are paying 3 mana. So still, Wipe Out the Horde has the potential, and again, most of the time, is going to cost even less than that foretell cost. And again, you don't have to spend mana to actually foretell it, so yeah, you're going to be saving a lot of mana there. But when it comes to another 4 mana board wipe, if you've got access to black, there's Kai's Wrath. Now this one has a very restrictive casting cost of white, black, and it says destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you controlled that were destroyed this way. So you do have the potential to gain some life with this, but again, that is a very restrictive casting cost. Now when it comes to a similar board wipe to that one, let's talk about Fumigate, a sorcery for 3 white, and it's going to destroy all creatures, and you gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. So this does have a much less restrictive casting cost, but it does cost 1 more, though it does count every single creature on the board. Again, if your deck can synergize with a little extra value that you're getting with this kind of a card, like gaining life, then great. But if you just need a Wrath and nothing else, then yeah, Wipe Out the Horde is going to cost less than this the vast majority of the time, and it's going to get the job done. Now, if you've got access to blue, of course, there's the fantastic Supreme Verdict, which costs 1 white, and a blue, and it can't be countered, and it destroys all creatures. So in other words, everything a control deck could ever want. So yeah, Wipe Out the Horde can definitely be countered, but again, it has the potential to cost less than this, and it has a less restrictive casting cost. And finally, obviously at higher mana costs, there are some more flexible board wipes with things like Austere Command and Cleansing Nova. Austere Command says choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. And then Cleansing Nova says choose 1, destroy all creatures, or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. So again, if you're willing to pay a little more mana for your board wipes, they can definitely be more flexible. And some decks definitely need that. They need that kind of flexibility. But if you're just looking for a standard board wipe, Wipe Out the Horde has the potential to save you a ton of mana. I mean, again, at its best, Austere Command is going to cost 3 times more than it. I mean, we really don't see solid 2 mana board wipes basically ever. But now let's move on and talk about some specific commanders that might really want to utilize this card. First up, how about Avacyn, Angel of Hope? She's an 8/8 flying, vigilant, indestructible angel that says other permanents you control have indestructible. So yeah, with everything being indestructible, by casting some wraths, let's just blow up everyone else's everything and we keep our things. And 2 mana to have a one-sided creature-based board wipe is really good. Next up, how about Athreos, Shroud Veiled? Athreos is also indestructible, and it says at the beginning of your end step, put a coin counter on another target creature. Whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So again, being indestructible is huge because again, your board wipe's not going to take this commander out. And when you take everything out with your 2 mana board wipe, well, everything that had a coin counter on it comes into play under your control. Or how about the other Athreos God of Passage, which is also indestructible? This one says, whenever another creature you own dies, return to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. 3 mana per creature is a ton to pay, so again with your 2 mana board wipe, you wipe everything else out and you're going to be getting a lot of your creatures back, or maybe even all of them. Or how about a Voltron commander like Zurgo Helmsmasher? Zurgo Helmsmasher is a 7/2 with haste and it has to attack each combat Fable, but Zurgo definitely wants to do that and it has indestructible as long as it's your turn. So suit up Zurgo with a bunch of equipment and yeah, wipe the board and swing through. Or how about Gerard Weatherlight Hero, which actually wants you to wrath him. He has, when he dies, exile it and return to the battlefield all artifact and creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So essentially, yeah, let's just wipe the board. Oh no, Gerard's gone. Okay, that's fine. Oh, I get everything else back. And finally, how about Nevinral Urborg Tyrant? Nevinral has, when it enters the battlefield, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn. So with your 2 mana Wrath, it's a lot easier to get this in play then and get a ton of zombies with that. And on top of that, if this is in play and you Wrath the board, when it dies you can pay 1, and if you do, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So if you really need to get rid of artifacts and enchantments as well, it just costs 1 extra mana to do that. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on this card. Yeah, this is most definitely going to be a staple in Commander. Again, just even being in the conversation with a card like Blasphemous Act is huge praise for this card. A 2 mana board wipe that isn't damage based is just unheard of. Now, will this see as much play as, say, Blasphemous Act? Probably not, again, just because Blasphemous Act is in red and there aren't as many options when compared to white. But still, Wipe Out the Horde is definitely some fantastic competition for pretty much any White Wrath out there. And yeah, it's going to be replacing a lot of cards in a lot of decks very shortly. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.